First of all, thank you so much for your presence, and I want to just send a noospheric thought to Ben again. We won't do it enough, but thanks to him, we're gathered here, and thanks to all the organizers who are here or not here, all of them, and thanks to the Human Energy and the IAS and this university. Each time I visit a part of it, and I am in awe, which is the which is the subject of this presentation. So I just want to start with, and this is a warning as well. I will be quoting a lot, and it's not because I choose to, but because I have to. In other words, once I see some people out there, those intellectual heroes who can articulate the ineffable, who can capture like a truth bomb, or a mindgasmic ideas, I cannot just not quote them. It becomes a part of me. It's a window, a lens through which I see the world. So mindgasms are something really real. It's those kind of moments when all the dots are connected, or you find a line, you find a poet that fit the world in a sentence, right? And it has been defined actually what a mindgasm is. It's an exhilarating neurostorm of intense intellectual pleasure. So if you ever stumbled upon a line that made you hold your breath for a while, you were in a mindgasmic state. So that being said, once I warned you that I am a quote junkie, my dear friend Jason Silva talks about the state of a wonder junkie. We're always after new sensations, after new metaphors, after new ways of verbalizing and languaging the fleeting moments. I just want to talk about this idea of Terence McKenna, who was a psychedelic philosopher. And by psychedelics, I don't mean the substances that makes you trip or whatever. I'm talking about the Greek roots, and I take this fetishism of etymology from Raphael Yogier, professor here present. It's mind manifesting. And he actually said that the future of humanity, the destiny of us, is stepping inside our own imagination. And I think that this kind of dome has been an idea once, and now we are in our own imagination. We are sitting in the chairs actually made of our own imagination. And I find that awe starts with mental models of the world. And my idea or my thesis is like we're all inclined or predisposed to feel awe and wonder. When we were children, we were feeling it all the time, but we forgot because the jadedness of the adult mind, the been there and seen that, the sense of a lived life, holds us from seeing beauty everywhere. We have emails to answer, we have appointments, we have kids to take care of, and we forget actually about how awesome the world is. And we have this intrinsic natural predisposition to breathe in beauty, to have these awe states of consciousness. Because if we were just looking for facts, we would go to the phone book. It's full of facts, and those facts are real. That phone number corresponds to that guy, the name is exact, but we don't have those goosebumps when we read this. But poetry is something else, but awe experiences are something else. And now let's see what awe really is. I won't go deeper in that because I will let Professor Francis Heiligen go deeper in explaining what awe and what wonder is. But the University of Stanford, I think back in 2012, the researchers there made a lot of experiments, a lot of clinical trials. And they describe awe as a state of a perceptual expansion, a perceptual vastness that the individual has, and he is forced to reconfigure his mental models of the world to assimilate those kind of perceptual expansions. And you know, when you first visited, I don't know, or seen the Grand Canyon for the first time, or you went to the Sagrada Familia and you saw the light coming through the colored glass, and maybe you're listening to some phantasmagorical music that's tripping you out, everything that is for the first time you did and took your breath away, that's how awe strikes us and stops us on our tracks. And I remember Aldous Huxley in his book, The Doors of Perception. Actually, he was under mescaline, And just to let you know how poets, when they were in awe, how they verbalized things. He said, for a while, I was no longer looking at an unusual flower arrangement because he found himself lost in an aesthetic contemplation of a flower for an hour. And he said, I was no longer looking at an unusual flower arrangement, but I was seeing what Adam had seen in the morning of his creation, the miracle moment by moment of naked existence. Another guy called F. Scott Fitzgerald, he actually described what the first Dutch sailors experienced or felt once they sailed or landed upon the New World. He said that for a transitory enchanted moment, man must have held his breath, compelled into aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. So these are some experiences that I want you to feel that awe when I first stumbled upon those lines. And I stumbled upon an article. By the way, it's not about publicity or whatever, but there is a magazine out there called Aeon. So they gathered just great minds to write essays, academic essays. And Kirk Schneider was a completely serendipitous encounter, intellectual encounter. And he made this difference between a quick boil awe and a slow simmer awe. So the quick boil is that moment when everything is shattered on you. So you feel that sense of first sight, unencumbered by knowingness. Before you know it, you're in awe. So it's like a lightning. So, and the slow simmer awe, maybe it's less intense, but you find your quotidian, your day-to-day life infused with beauty, with godhood in a way. So if the quick boil is something so intense, I think slow simmer is like that fire that warms your soul, kind of thing. And James Joyce talked about this moment when you're shielded from your expectations. He talked about aesthetic arrest, when you are aesthetically arrested. And now I want to talk about this relationship because I think beauty and awe are intertwined. Actually, I coined that term, and that's again being close to Raphael Liogier's philosophy to try to create new words to describe new things. I call it biotherapy, and that's one of my theses. Is actually that awe is really undervalued. We think it's a nice feeling, whereas it's necessary, it's sustenance, it's vital. And encounters with or incidents with awe can be therapeutic, and they are therapeutic. So the idea here is to try to understand how a PTSD unfolds in a human psyche, and it's pretty much the same. So once you have a trauma, now you see the world through the lenses of your trauma. You see the world in a dark lens because you have been traumatized. But it turns out that encounters with the beatific can reforge those lenses, and now you see the world with more grace, equanimity, and beauty. And in those moments, I chose this line that I really love from William Blake. When you are in an awe state, you see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. You hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. So now let's talk about the prerequisites of awe and wonder. How can we tap into those moments of wonderment and awe? I think the first aspect is try to work on our attention. These are scientists who talked about it. Darwin, he said that attention, if sudden and close, graduates into surprise, and this into astonishment, and this into stupefied amazement. Henry Miller said, even a blade of grass, when given proper attention, when you see it through the microscope, it becomes a magnificently incredible world in itself. And there is another thing about attention. It's not only paying attention to what is at hand, but maybe try to have this qualitative attention. Blake put it even more beautifully. He said, the same tree that moves someone to tears could be just like a green thing in the road for another. So it turns out we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. The second thing is more intellectual, when you have this tendency of associational thinking. Carl Sagan said that understanding is a kind of ecstasy. Isaiah Berlin told us that to understand is to perceive patterns. And that's what I was talking about. The therapeutic aspect of awe is the people who have been in a psychotherapy sessions where awe were there, awe-inducing experiments. They report an increased feeling of well-being, an increased feeling of pattern recognition, an increased feeling of altruism, an increased feeling of general well-being. So the second or the third prerequisite, I would say, it's courage, is the courage of taking the road the less traveled by. Jalaluddin Rumi, who was a Sufi, a mystical Sufi, said that the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. The bumper sticker is real. It's not just kitsch or something. The real life starts outside of your comfort zone. But we have this kind of biological bias. We try to intellectualize. Once we have this habit, we can't get rid of it very easily. And to give you an awe-inducing or awe-evoking quote again, Terence McKenna, again, he told us that the noosphere, the world, nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature, the noosphere, the world, will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under, it will lift you up. This is the secret. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done. This is what all the professors and philosophers who touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood, is by hurling yourself into the abyss only to realize that it's a featherbed. But first you have to be willing to do the leap of faith. And this requires a kind of curiosity, childlike curiosity. Picasso said that we all children are artists. The problem is how to remain that way once we grow up. And Walker Percy talks about this notion of the search. He said that the search is what anyone would undertake if they were not sunk in the everydayness of their own lives. And to become aware of the possibility of the search is to be on to something. Not to be on to something is to be in despair. You know that line that all men lead life of quiet desperation? So the jadedness of the adult mind is the real enemy of awe-inducing experiences. Now I'm going to talk about unlearning, which is really essential to have this kind of first sight, the virginal noticing of the sensate world, as I think Michael Pollan talked about. And you see, once we learn something for the first time, we cannot relearn it for the first time. We can learn it for the second time. We can have this experience for the third time, but never for the first time. That's where unlearning is really important, because I think there are a lot of learning in learning how to unlearn. And Jerry Garcia said it best. He said, to get really high is to forget yourself. And to forget yourself is to see everything else. Simone de Beauvoir said that absolute and unmixed attention is a form of prayer. Even Aldous Huxley, who paraphrased William James, he said, when the doors of perceptions are cleansed, everything appears to man as it is, infinite. So that's why we have to work on those lenses of perception to become aware that in the first place, we have a lenses of perception. And finally, I'm going to talk about the mystery, to be reacquainted with the unknown, as we say. Rudolf Otto talks about this kind of feeling of the mysterium tremendum e fascinas. You don't know if you're excited or horrified. The first time you do skydiving, you are scared, but at the same time, you're excited. So those in-between moments are something that induces awe and wonder. So let's talk about something that I really love. I'm kind of addicted to this. And this comes from a lot of experiences and exchanges with my dear friend Jason Silva, who is a performer philosopher. He loves to spread ideas. Even his YouTube channel, it's called The Shots of Awe. So if you want to get high on intellectual ideas, I really recommend his content. And he popularized the notion of flow, but the first one who first coined this is a guy called Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. He's a psychologist, and he wrote a lot of books about optimal psychological experiences. So first, we thought that flow is something that rappers can tap into, but now it's starting to be studied very seriously by neuroscientists, and we want to know what's happening in the mind or in the head of someone who is on a flow state. I'm sure a lot of you have been on a flow state, but we didn't recognize it in a way. So I think that flow state, and that's why I love Venn diagram. Instead of putting a lot of text, it's just two circles, something that overlaps, and you can get the idea of what I'm talking about. So it's when you show, actually, chaos and order. So chaos is an explosion of possibility, but it's overwhelming. A lot of chaos, it's like you're drowning into a lot and a massive amount of information, but there where creativity can seep in. Order is something necessary, because without order, we cannot have this room. You guys couldn't be here on time, and I couldn't be just improvising about these ideas. So we need them both. We need order and we need chaos. Too much chaos, it's a feeling of overwhelming, and too much order, it's like a cold prison. You're suffocating. And the flow state, again, has been described like a perfect balance between challenge and skills. And so the flow state oscillates between boredom and frustration. So we need that sweet spot, that perfect balance between challenge and skills. If the challenge is too high, the difficulty of the task is too high, and you don't have the skills for it, you will be frustrated. It's like you don't know how to snowboard. I was talking about a friend with Devin last night and Abe. You don't know absolutely how to snowboard, and then you go do it, you're gonna get frustrated. But if the challenge is not as high as your mastery, you're gonna get bored. It's like you have been playing Sudoku for I don't know how many years, and then you choose the easy mode. There is no feeling of excitement or enjoyment. It's too easy for you. That's why the challenge needs to meet the skills. So the flow state, again, is when you feel your best and you perform your best. And the most people who feel the flow state, who are in the flow state, who can tap into it, are the athletes, or those virtuosos, or people who can master an instrument. They got into a flow state. So of course they have 10,000 hours of practice. So it's something that comes after the mastery. And it has some hallmarks, some main characteristics. So the first one, those characteristics have been summarized by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheal in their book, Stealing Fire. So they had this flow genome project where they really want to understand what's going on in the brain. So it turns out that the notion of self disappears. So the monkey mind, the Woody Allen that we have inside of our minds that is responsible of self-editing, goes dim. It literally shuts down. We did fMRI scans on those people who are on flow state. They found out that the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex goes dim. And it's interesting, it's uncanny how by using less area of your brain, you can do some crazy performances. You can outperform yourself. So there is this kind of feeling of oneness with something larger than yourself. Your sense of self dissolves. The notion of time gets distorted. Hours feel like minutes, and you lose track of time. What the Greeks called the kairos, they made it really clear, this distinction between chronos and kairos. Chronos is mechanized cognition, is time by the clock. And kairos is a time outside of time. It's the realm of the reverie. It's the realm of the imagination. And then you have this notion of effortlessness. Whatever you're doing, because you mastered what you're doing, it doesn't feel like a labor. It is effortlessness. It's a seamless experience. So what's interesting is like the people who play basketball, they're talking about being in the pocket, or jazz musicians being in the zone, or the surfer when he's catching that perfect surf, he got this feeling, and there is those kind of words they use to describe the same feeling while doing different activities. And then last but not least is this kind of information richness. There is a great download and automatic pattern recognition. The French philosopher French poet Nicolas Boileau, he said it best. He said, "Ce qui se conçoit bien s'énonce clairement, et le mot pour le dire arrive aisément." What is well conceived is expressed clearly, and the words to say it comes easily. So it's a kind of flawless, it's a kind of flowy and seamless experience. Now, I just want to finish these lines, but by a quote that I really love. Howard Thurman, he said that instead of asking what the world needs, ask rather what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more of us who come alive. So I heard a presentation before me about this kind of aliveness that we need to awaken the mind's attention of the lethargy of custom and the film of familiarity, and to redirect it towards the wonders of existence, because it turns out that the world is full of magic things patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper, as Yeats said, or Nisargadatta, who said that the other world is this world rightly seen. So to sum it up, I'm gonna leave you with the words of Robin Williams, the Dead Poets Society, who said that science, engineer, medicine, law, those are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, love, romance, those are the things we stay alive for. So find your passion, find what makes you come alive, because what the world needs and what the noosphere needs is more of us who come alive. Thank you very much.